Well, it's that time again. Ooh, look at that. I'm the cool contrarian again. Well, that's fine. There are worse things to be in this world. Here's something. Maybe it's a contrarian opinion here. I've had it with clocks in my kitchen. It's daylight savings, and why? Why does everything need a clock on it? I don't know. But I'm all for appliances that don't have clocks or internet connectivity. I don't need that in my life. So that's my day so far. Hopefully, what's going on down there? It's the Existential Movie Podcast. It's oh so curious. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. Next week we're gonna be watching Wakanda Forever. And boy, who's on the show today? I got my friend Rolan. Rolan, how you doing?
Yep. So got that boring name tag.
Uh-huh.
At least you get like a cool one. I just get Bob. I get the name of like a first grader. That's
well,
the
you know
one I'm
what?
rocking with.
You know what? Coax a commenter into calling you something, and that'll become your nickname. That's how that works. I didn't ask Dan to give me that tag. I just was.
I do more hot takes, is what you're saying. I think
maybe.
That's
Give us something worth commenting on and calling you a name about.
I can't stand Phil Collins music.
What?
Never been a fan. I just don't like Phil Collins music. I really don't. I think it's overrated, insanely so. His voice is dumb to me.
You know what I will say.
He's probably fine as a person, but
yeah, no, he's a good musician, I would say. And what's neat about him is he's a singing drummer. That's how he got his start. You don't see that all the time. That's kind of cool. I went through a thing where I was like, I should see if I like Phil Collins music, and some of it's not bad, but no, I'm not gonna. I don't know. He's talented, but am I gonna sit down and listen to Phil Collins all the time? Probably not. But
no. Come on, that's such a good. Okay, never mind.
I knew you would like it, Daniel.
It's an iconic moment in a song, and it's one of those things that really. I'm getting Charlie horse. One of those days. So yeah, Dan, you're peeking through, aren't you? With your little comment there. How are you doing today?
Any hot takes?
Well.
Hot takes? Yeah. Do you feel a particular way that might earn you a nickname that is not Jabroni?
I don't know. That's I guess you'll find out. You know, the proverbial gloves will be coming off today. I've got a few things to say about a certain few things that I will save my energy for now. We will get to it. We'll get to it in a little bit. Sure.
Well, okay. In the meantime, would you like to give us a bit of a rundown of what's happening today?
Yeah, let's do that. I always forget.
Here we go.
To remind me. Should be my job. Okay. All right. Rundown time. So we start with reacting to the Avatar trailer, The Way of Boredom, as I like to call it. Not The Way of Water. Well, it is The Way of Water. Weird. We're going to get weird. We're going to talk about the Roku channel and this newest movie. Henry Cavill's Witcher news. You know, still digesting it a week later. We'll have a dive deep? We'll dive into it. Anyway, Bollywood Virgins. We watch Munna, Bhai, M.B.B.S, a classic by all measures, and we'll be talking about that. And then we have a new episode of Rolan Underground towards the back end of the show, so we will also be getting into that. That's your rundown.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah. So yeah, that's happening. Why don't you just take those gloves off right now, man? Tell us how you're feeling.
Yeah.
What's like right now?
You got something on your mind?
Something's on your chest.
Right now?
I think it would be therapeutic for it to get it off it.
You guys don't even want to talk about Avatar. You just want me to jump into.
Okay, I mean, if you
all right,
we can. Personally, no. Fine. Personally, no. I don't want to talk about Avatar. I watched the trailer. I was not totally thrilled. I wasn't totally thrilled with the first one either. Okay, yeah, and this is a movie that's going to be like 4.5 days long, so it's I don't know. Are you going to be somebody who's watching this trailer and goes, I have to go to Pandora? I'm not. I'm not that guy. The underwater scenes, they feel like you're underwater. Hey, good for you. 10 years after an underwhelming 3D experience for me, we got more blue cat people on another planet, and I don't really want to sit through it all, but I'm going to. And you know what? I'm an open-minded guy. If I go see it, I'm not going to go in with the attitude that I don't want to be there. I'm going to totally give myself over to it, and I'll come back to you with a genuine opinion of how it made me feel and what the experience was like. I'm even going to go see it in 3D just because I want to give you a true reaction to somebody's hard work. That's what I owe to you watching this show.
You know who they kind of look like? You guys ever see Splice?
Yeah.
Splice. It was a terrible. Yeah.
We got
it wasn't terrible,
eyes
but,
are a little too far apart.
Yeah.
And just like, it's.
I'm seeing some new characters, and it just made me think of that. Yeah. But what did she even say at the trailer? She was like, "Oh, her heartbeat feels brave," or something. I don't know. I don't care.
Here's my general impression. Okay, so I thought the teaser trailer was better than what they're calling like the official first trailer of the movie, because if anything,
teasers are generally better.
They are.
Because
teasers
they don't have to do the heavy lifting
you and get you excited about what's coming, and you're supposed to guess. It's the thing about trailers right now is they give away all the plot, and I know based on my last experience with Avatar that the plot does not matter.
In fairness though, a good trailer's job is to kind of give you a general sense of what you're going in to watch. Like, for example, if you just showed up to Earth today for the first time and you're like, what is Avatar? And then you want to, you don't want to give away the whole movie, obviously, but you want to give them a certain sense of, like, for example, we're talking about before the show, Babylon. Babylon is a movie that's going to come out in less than a month's time, I think. And Andrew, you had not heard of it before, but we mentioned it. If you went and watched the trailer, and the trailer sort of told you somewhat, I'm saying like, just need to tell you a good basis of what the story's about. Now, teaser trailers don't. Teaser trailers just need to give you like a feeling of like, and then kind of a preview of what you're going to get. And the teaser trailer did that. But this second trailer, I got to be honest with you, I'm worried because while the CGI, the 3D, all of that stuff looks fantastic. It looks better than before, good as it's ever looked. Even, like there's new stuff that we've seen here. But, well, it's been like 13 years. But what worries me is watching this trailer, I get the feeling we might be getting virtually the same story as we got in 2009, except now that they're doing it in the ocean or in and around the ocean. Like, for example, the human ships that they show in these huge human ships, except they're floating on water rather than flying in the air in the jungle. And then James Cameron has mentioned in recent interviews that Pandora is not like every other sci-fi alien planet. Like, in Star Wars, you go to a desert planet and the whole thing is a desert, or the whole thing is covered with snow. Pandora has like all these different ecosystems like Earth does. But if this second movie becomes one of those things where there's the same story except different environment, I'm worried that all the sequels from here on, we're gonna get like same story in a desert, same story in the mountains with the snow-covered peaks. Like, is that where we're going?
Yeah, I'm telling you, like we said it before, the mission of these movies is world building, is creating an environment, and it really seems like story isn't even secondary. It might be tertiary or quaternary. I got other words, but what I'm saying is that it's not a priority, and it shows. And to people like me who go to the movies to be told a good story, this kind of storytelling does nothing for me. I want to be engaged with, character development, and, it's going into a new world is exciting for the first minute of a movie. I love The Fifth Element, that movie, it does a really good job of showing you the external parts of this futuristic world, but that's not the point of the movie. You're going on a mission, and there's things at stake, and you can feel there's a soulful quality to it where you can relate to the character trying to find love, and love being a theme in it. Now, yes, love is a theme in Avatar as well, but it's just sort of pasted on top of this roller coaster ride, or Disney ride where, you get to look at stuff. So I think, the objective here is to create a reality. Maybe the future of these movies is VR, as we've said, but 3.5 hours in a movie theater watching this stuff? Well, oh boy, we'll see. That's what I think about that.
Roland, what did you think of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think your explanation of a trailer was great, Dan. And I think that this trailer perfectly describes that, where there's all these beautiful shots and I don't care about any of it. That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
That'll get you a new nickname. If you're watching this and you have a new nickname for Roland or me, hell, I could use more. And
or Dan.
Or Dan, please give us something for maybe this next thing. Let us know what you think. Comment, subscribe, be part of this. I'm not going to say that F word. Be joined of the fan community and engage with us. This is Oh So Curious. We're on everything. So find us on everything. Thank you for watching. Dan, now's your time to shine. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to get it out there and tell us what you really thought about War of the Worlds.
Yeah, War of the Worlds. You know, when I came up with this idea, I was before I get into my rant proper, I sort of was like all excited, and then like sort of I don't know, maybe I psyched myself out because like I've ranted to myself on this so many times in the last 48 hours that, you know what, I can probably go for another round. Yeah, I can probably do this. Let's see, 60 seconds may not be enough. Like that's the thing. It's
let's see how far you get. Let's see just how passionate you are about your distaste for this abomination.
Okay. All right, I got 60 seconds on the clock. 1 minute.
Here we go.
And yeah, let's do this.
60 seconds. Everything wrong with War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds sucks, and I am not gonna hold anything back because, oh my God. The language is gonna get profane. I'm forewarning you. I've already wasted 15 seconds of your time.
45 seconds left.
Much like this show wasted 3 years of my life with 3 very subpar seasons where the aliens aren't even aliens. They're just human colonizers who, for some stupid reasons, like decided to travel back in time to invade Earth, and because they're Adam and Eve, or the Adam of their Eve, whatever, he was a psychopath who just naturally, you know, somehow made the whole species like crazy and hate all humans. I'm like, okay, great. There's like a whole time loop involved.
Dan, you have 15 seconds left, and you haven't even told us what your problem is with
this third season. The science of the show makes no sense whatsoever. They're calling a wormhole a black hole. They're totally speculating on what quantum theory is.
And
nothing in this show makes any sense. It's the worst. Hold on. It's the worst sci-fi show I have ever seen, and that's in a world where another life exists, a show that was a pathetic excuse for holding up media storage on Netflix's servers for 2 stupid seasons, and yet that show was somehow more entertaining than this show was. I can't believe I subscribed to Epix for 3 years to get this show. MGM, you need to stop wasting time with stupid French British collaboration shows where they waste perfectly good talent, where Daisy Edgar Jones does not even want to come back for the 3rd season so she can go do even worse things like Where the Crawdads Sing. But Gabriel Byrne probably signed a 3-season contract, and he got stuck in this. And his character, for saving the world like 3 times, gets absolutely no resolution at the end, except he gets stabbed by this like robot, and then he just watches himself die after saving the world, going from the world where everything's gonna be okay to the post-apocalyptic world where somehow they've figured out a way to like put their hand in the beam stream of a like a particle accelerator, and using a micro black hole to a black hole, not a wormhole, a black hole, to jump universes. This is literally, I'm not making any of this shit up. The science in the show sucks.
Finishing statement.
And there's no comic, like, okay, this show literally, I love Dark,
give me a second.
But this show takes itself way too seriously. It is
Dan, Dan,
show.
Pause
on
for a
TV
second.
This year.
Pause for a second, Dan.
He has us on mute. He can't hear us.
Cut back for a second. Okay. What I want to do, I want to actually give you, because that was a lot of preface, okay? You did a lot of setup here. I want to actually give you 60 seconds. And that was 3 minutes, just so you know. I want to actually give you 60 seconds to concisely say everything that is wrong with this. Can you do that?
Statement kind of deal.
Just say what the problems are. Okay?
I didn't even know it was a show.
Yeah,
I thought you
issue.
were talking about the Tom Cruise movie, and I was like, that's an interesting rewatch, but okay.
Okay. All right, fine, okay.
Let's put 60 seconds back on the clock. Just go through it as fast as you can. List everything that's wrong with this thing.
That was me ranting. I think I did it better in my head. Whatever. Okay, all right.
You're good.
Fine.
You're good.
All right.
One more time. 60 seconds on the clock. Here we go.
All right.
Everything wrong with War of the Worlds.
It's a show on Netflix. Not Netflix, oh God. It's a show on Epix, which is going to become MGM Plus next year. And it's honestly, quite frankly, the most illogical sci-fi show I have ever seen. And in an era when you have shows like The Expanse and For All Mankind raising the profile of what good sci-fi TV looks like, this show both takes itself too seriously, is too stiff at times. The plot is completely illogical. Like, if you have even the high school level knowledge of relativity and quantum physics, you would know that this show is doing all the wrong things. And not to mention, they're throwing away the perfectly good, talented cast that they had. And some of the character relationships make no sense in how they evolve. Basically, they couldn't even stick the landing. I was like, fuck all of the rest of the stuff. As long as you can stick the landing in the end, I'll be fine. But it had the most disappointing finale with the worst conclusions to all character arcs of all time. It's a bad show. Don't watch it.
Dan, I'm gonna edit that into a reel because that's how you do it. We had 60 seconds. Every point was made very clearly. I understand why I'm not gonna watch it now. That was wonderful. Good for you. I hope that was cathartic.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, that was
excellent.
That's one way to put it. Cathartic. Yeah.
Cathartic. Well,
it's
like
there's
catharsis.
Very few things that actively like piss me off and offend me, and when they do, I'm just like, of all the time I could have spent, because I was holding on till like maybe the finale will justify it.
Earlier this year, you were recommending that show to me.
Was I? Did I?
Yeah.
I don't know if I was like entirely recommending it. I think I was probably recommending For All Mankind. Maybe that's or The Expanse.
No. I remember you talking to me about War of the Worlds, and I was like, that's an interesting take on.
Well, things. I think I explained it to you, but I also probably told you like how a lot of it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you got tricked into that. I watched Tell Me Lies. My sister told me to watch Tell Me Lies.
Oh, how was that?
You know what? It's pretty good. There's way too much sex in it. It's like, grow up. There's so much sex in that show. It's gratuitous how much sex there is. It's just like 4 or 5 sex scenes an episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that. Some of the acting's pretty good. Katie Seagal is fantastic in it. She's in it for a couple episodes, but mainly one. And that's actually her son, who's the lead male in it. So I'd recommend it.
Yeah. Where is the show? Is it
That's on Hulu, and it's pretty good. You know, they did a good job setting up for a second season, which I'll probably return for. So there's that.
You know, The White Lotus is getting a lot of buzz. Like now, people are finding it for like Aubrey Plaza was in the news this week because she, I think, just joined that Agatha Coven of Chaos show, and then the big thing she's up to right now is The White Lotus. So
The White it's interesting. I'm glad they brought back what's her name?
Jennifer Coolidge.
Jennifer Coolidge. Jennifer Coolidge is always fantastic. She really shined in the first season of that show. And it was a smart move to bring her back of all the people you could. But
what's the guy? Who did they bring him back?
I believe so. She marries him.
No.
Oh, Steve Zahn?
Steve Zahn. Is he back?
I don't think. No, I think Jennifer Coolidge is the only one and the way they've written it into the show is that she just goes to all the different White Lotus resorts around the world.
Oh,
so.
Okay.
Yeah,
so there's like a mythology to this, like what the White Lotus is. It's sort of
like
a
little bit. It's just
exists in a John Wick world.
It's like a chain that exists in that world.
Yeah.
And it's it was clever writing. It was funny. It was dark, and I'm not exactly optimistic about this next season because it looks a little too different. But we'll see. You know, it could be as different as the first and second season of True Detective, and I loved the first season, and I did not care about anything after.
That was like when Diane Kruger was on the show, and what's his name? Harrelson Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
It was Matthew
I was
McConaughey.
like,
and Woody
is that
Harrelson.
even the same show?
Yeah.
Like it's totally
Basically
changed.
not. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
like it's. I don't like
What I don't
anthologies where
like,
they
you know,
completely
HBO does
abandon-
this a little bit, or like Westworld got canceled this week after
Good.
4 seasons over 6 years, and they
Yeah.
did this too, where after the first 2 seasons they changed their setting, and they won like I think like 20 some odd Emmys, but like 90% of those came from the first 2 seasons, and since then it
Yeah.
just critically and audience wise, the ratings went from like they were averaging 12 million in the first season to like they were averaging 4 million this year, which is why, and it was meant to be like the heir apparent to Game of Thrones, which now we know is House of the Dragon is that heir apparent, but especially viewership wise. But they did that where like, you know, after 2 seasons they changed it completely. I'm like, okay, American Horror Story does this right, where they're like 1 season and then the next season is completely different. So you can kind of predict it. What I don't want to see is 2 years into the show, I'm like, okay, I kind of know what this is. But then you change it, I'm like, it doesn't seem regular enough. Like either do it episode to episode or season by season.
For me,
especially when
it's
the season, like they take 2 years to get another season out. Like it's like 6 years into watching a show, I don't want to have a completely different show that has the same name on it. Call it something else. You know?
For me, if you like, I was gonna say, if you like Westworld, there's The Peripheral that just came out on Amazon.
Oh god, the VFX on that looked terrible. I've seen some of the
really?
shots. Like,
you think?
Well, no, because that's also based on a book, and it's by the same creators as the Westworld. And I was reading about this where they signed a deal with Amazon, like an overall deal, and as part of that, they made an exception in the deal so they could continue on Westworld for, I think they were originally trying to go for like 6-7 seasons. So if they were to follow through with all of those, they would have still stuck around, despite the fact that everything else they would be doing would be on Amazon. And the Peripheral is like an adaptation of a novel, and is their first project with the company.
Yep.
But I was watching this. I mean, look, Chloe Grace Moretz, fantastic, talented person. But since Kick-Ass movies, and even I guess maybe just the first Kick-Ass movie, she's done a terrible job of picking her projects. She needs to fire all of her agents and hire some good ones, because she's become this actress who's got the talent, but is seeming constantly like in terrible projects. I haven't watched The Peripheral all the way through, but from what I've seen so far, like there's a shot in the trailer even where like, you know, she's about to get covered by this cocoon of something, and you can tell like they did like this weird VFX where when they shot it, they didn't have any kind of like light, like shadow actually being cast on her, and then they had to project that stuff onto her in post, like onto the footage, and it just doesn't look realistic. And then the show is one of those shows where it's color graded, like they use log format to film everything, and then they just like added a bunch of contrast and punched it up, and then they just dropped like a LUT on top and said everything is brown and dirty. Like every shot looks like kind of flat. Like whereas if you watch a Dune, or you watch Blade Runner 2049, Denis Villeneuve, like there's an incredible amount of color in every shot, but it's rich in texture. There's like shadows, darkness, whereas this show just looks like it's grays and I don't know. I guess maybe it'll
have a good story. It's hard to tell. You know, it's hard to tell that, you know, something you sign up for is going to be a horrible project, because you never know how they're going to change it in post, or what they're going to, you know, how they're going to edit the story together. I mean, go easy on Chloe. She is a good actress. And
that's what I'm saying. She is a good actress, but I just, like I said, she doesn't pick her projects well, or I don't know, her representation is not guiding her well enough. But then again, it could be just my taste. Like, remember that movie that she was in where she was in like World War I or World War II, and she was like a part of the crew of one of these bomber aircrafts, and she was the gunner. And then it's like the zombie apocalypse happens, and then basically most of the movies they're fighting zombies off in the air. I'm like, you didn't read that and think that could go wrong, especially considering what you already got on your resume, and you just went and took that job anyway. I don't know. Maybe she just doesn't get a lot of opportunities at better shows. I mean, The Peripheral, I guess, you read the book, you're like, okay, the author is very well known and is one of the iconic sci-fi authors of his time. So you're thinking, and then these guys made Westworld. I mean, forget the last 2 seasons, but the first 2 were, Emmy winning. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll get better. Again, I haven't seen the whole thing, so I'm just prejudging it a little bit here. So,
well, should we move on to what other people had to say to us this week?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. we got.
Take a look.
I picked out one comment of the week this week. We have been doing more than one recently, but Actually, you know what? There was probably one more. There was a good comment on the Christopher Lee video where somebody said, like, of all the movies you pointed out, there were even more that he could have been a part of that he didn't ultimately end up doing. And so we've been getting good response on our some memorable videos, Robbie Coltrane and stuff. But this comment comes to us from a video that went up very recently. I think it was like went up in the last day or two, where Mags basically gave her take on Henry Cavill being replaced as The Witcher. Or him leaving The Witcher and Liam Hemsworth taking over the role of Geralt.
Okay, comment of the week: Wilfredo Martel. TBH, I'd watch the fourth season if they cast Miley Cyrus as Yennefer. Okay.
That's so messed up.
Also, I personally like Cavill as Superman. He has great potential, hopefully. These new DC movies give Henry Cavill time to make this Superman his own. Like you said, Cavill is passionate. I don't understand the Witcher reference. Roland, it sounded like you did. What does that mean?
But
Miley
after
Cyrus
Yennefer, in the original comment, there is a laugh emoji, just to give you some context. The guy was, obviously having fun.
Liam Hemsworth and Miley Cyrus, I think, were married at one point, and they divorced.
Yeah.
And it was not a good,
Is Yennefer the love interest on the show? Oh.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's the comment of the week. I think now we can move on to what we really wanted to get down to business. And as we transition ever so gracefully into that next segment, make sure you like and subscribe and become part of this movie fan community. We watched a couple movies this week, and we're going to talk about them right now. But thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. You could be next week's comment of the week. Imagine that. And then you'd be on television. Like me. So, now, this was the week that we got to watch Weird, the Al Yankovic Story. I had high hopes for this. I'm somebody who has been a lifelong Weird Al Yankovic fan. At one point in my life, I knew all the words to the 11.5-minute song Albuquerque. The song Hardware Store changed my life, and the man taught me how to harmonize. I love Weird Al. I think he's one of the best celebrities out there, the way he handles celebrity. I've seen him live. He's a fantastic live performer. He never phones it in. I had incredibly high hopes for this movie, and I say this with all the love in my heart for a man who really inspired me. This was not a good movie.
I always love your like epic build-ups. They always give me joy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Roland, you watched it too. Were you thrilled?
I did. There's at some points I was thrilled. But a lot of this is juxtaposition, dare I say. It's very like ridiculous on purpose. Weird Al is like a renowned like almost vegan guy who doesn't drink or do any drugs or stuff like that. And basically the story is him following this like very stereotypical rock star life, which Andrew and I predicted to be a very we thought was going to be the next Dewey Cox kind of story.
Yeah, and again, Walk Hard it might be my favorite movie of all time. And so this was a tall order for somebody to do a parody biopic, but if there was anybody to do it, it was him. I think what really bugged me about this was that this was based on the Funny or Die sketch, which you pointed out to me. And I watched that, and the sketch is good. It stars Aaron Paul and not Daniel Radcliffe. But, it's funny because it's a trailer and you can see where everything's going to go. This movie really felt like they just stretched out the joke. They just stretched out even in the look. And this was a movie where it looked like most of the budget went to getting Daniel Radcliffe. I mean, it was distracting how bad the production was in a lot of this.
You think?
Yeah, for me. And I'm not generally a snob about that kind of stuff. Other stuff I'm a snob about, but not that. And, for all of the talent involved in this, they had a fantastic cast. A lot of really
cameos.
Funny
my
cameos
gosh. The pool party alone.
Yeah, that scene was that's hilarious. Just who they got there. And it was, I imagine the days filming this were so much fun. I just wish that had been communicated through the actual movie.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
They filmed this in 18 days.
That sounds about right. It
Yeah.
feels like it. It
Yeah.
feels like it. I, the other thing about it is that if you know anything about Weird Al Yankovic's life, he's got a really interesting story, and it's riddled with tragedy and like really inspiring moments. And honestly, what this made me feel was I'd like to actually see the Weird Al Yankovic story. I know that's not what this was, but there's more to him. And, at the end of it, he really does and did inspire people to embrace their weirdness and to just
Yeah.
be, your kooky self. They tried to just sort of gloss that into his award acceptance speech, and it didn't it wasn't delivered. It didn't deliver properly. So
Yeah.
ultimately, I'll say this movie didn't wow me. It made me chuckle a couple of times, but where it's brilliant is in how Roku used it strategically, because nobody even knew that the RokuChannel.com was going to exist before this movie. They built this movie up with so much hype, and Daniel Radcliffe and Weird Al, they did all kinds of magazine interviews and photo shoots, and like the press for this has been pretty good. This was not about Weird Al Yankovic though, or Daniel Radcliffe. It was really more about the Roku channel. And you even said you were thrilled with your experience, right?
Oh, so when I watched this, I didn't have to log in or anything. I was actually looking up clips on YouTube, and it was just like, watch here now, Roku. And I was like, well, I do need to watch this. Let me just click on this link.
Yeah.
And then the movie started playing.
Yep.
And I was like, convenient. Okay.
It's sort of signaling to the world like Roku's gonna take on all these streamers. You're not gonna have to log in. You're not gonna have to pay. You're not gonna have to sign in with your cable provider. There are ads, so you're watching with ads. But you know what? Television has always had ads. And at the end of the day, this movie did feel like a TV movie.
Yeah.
It just felt like something you would watch on basic cable with ads going through. With Netflix introducing an ad tier and Hulu having an ad tier already, everybody's sort of saying like, hey, the streaming model doesn't totally work, but everybody does have a computer, everybody has a phone, and they can watch this stuff whenever they want. What if we embrace the old model? This could be really interesting. And the way that Roku is positioning themselves, they're saying we're not going to try and, beat Netflix at its own game. Its own game is failing. So this is kind of a new age of television that's starting. We're seeing the end of just pure streaming, which is getting expensive. And now Roku is going to start making its own content.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Is this the bar that they've set? It's a pretty low bar, I gotta say.
Before we go more into the business side, because I know Dan, that's like his go-to. I just want to say that the story was supposed to be a parody, of course, and there were a lot of fun moments, but the big thing was just like this was a joke that just went on for too long. They could have parodied more. But it is a good watch, and like we said, like you can watch it on Roku if you want. There's other stuff. But Dan, I see you're pulling up articles, and what do you have to say about this? Do you think this is a good idea? Was this smart, or was this just dumb?
I think I mentioned this in our group chat that we have for the team, and my thing is, okay, so they brought, I think his name is Charlie Collier. Charlie Collier, who used to be, an exec with Fox, and so he came over and he's basically taking charge of their marketing business, and their media business at Roku. But yeah, like you guys mentioned, 18 days, that's an indie film shooting schedule. Like a proper Hollywood movie takes usually like a feature like 2 to 3 months to film, even if it doesn't have a lot of visual effects and all that stuff. So right then I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. Is this feels like, because 18 days, is actually still more than most of those Tyler Perry's Medea movies. Yeah, because they do those in like a couple of weeks, frankly.
Yeah.
But still, like it's not like, so that's a red flag. And then I mentioned, in our chat, the idea of, well, how are they going to make money off this? I know they're not putting a ton of money into it, so maybe that's their plan.
Well, it's the
But
advertising.
Ads.
like, were there by the way, were there ads in this movie when you were watching?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the
Okay.
new model, is that they're saying don't sign in. Your eyeballs are all we need. It's basically the YouTube model, but you're signing up for more impressive content.
Okay.
Ideally.
So it's like an ad supported.
It was like-
yeah. Okay.
It was like a long YouTube video because there was like seven, like for me, there was like 7 breaks, but it wasn't too long. It was like 5 or 10 seconds of ads, and then boom, you're back into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, they could develop that into a lot of different things, and they could
It's
even.
like Peacock. Peacock has like an ad supported tier. They introduced it with that, and the idea is you sign up for that. If you like it enough, then you pay up to get the one without the ads and some extra content that you don't get. It's kind of like what Netflix is introducing, except they went it the other way around. They started with all the premium, and now they're like, so it kind of, in that sense, I think Peacock did it right, because they started off with like a lower tier, and so then when you add on a paid tier on top, people are like, oh, I can upgrade. Whereas with Netflix, it feels like if you want to go to the ad tier now, you're going to be losing stuff, and that's never a good marketing move, I don't think.
This so far feels more like basic cable, which is kind of refreshing, because what was really neat about flipping through channels for me as a kid, it's like you could stumble on something interesting. And what I'm just sort of theorizing right now is they could have the Roku channel and have a bunch of things that are just always playing, or like you could jump in and watch something and there will be ads and then it'll just lead into the next thing. Or they could end up doing like a bunch of different channels. Because I think one of the bigger problems in streaming right now is you spend 15, 20 minutes deciding what to watch, and you're scrolling and scanning and doing all this stuff. It's nice when something can just kind of pop up and start and capture your imagination. There's some wisdom to the old model of just stumbling upon a new channel. And I watch so many weird documentary shows and and true crime stuff, or weird reality TV stuff that would just pop up as a kid, and
that is
learn
the
stuff.
format. So that is the format that what is it called? Pluto and Tubi use. They're called. So their industry term is FAST, which stands for free ad-supported television. And it seems like, is that what they're trying to do here? Where basically, if you have Tubi or Pluto, and again, they're free. You can get it anywhere. You can go to the website and watch it. They have like a TV guide, and they have this stuff that's just basically these 24/7 streams that are running. A lot of them are just repeats or like catalog content that's just playing on basically a marathon. But then again, like you said, you come home. I used to come home from school, and like even from work, and but when I was in college, I'd go to work on a day and then have classes in the evening or whatever. You just turn on the TV. And then you just put on, I guess, like Nickelodeon in the afternoon. They're playing like 6 episodes in a row of some show that's not on the air anymore. Or you watch USA Network in the afternoon. They only really program 2 to 3 hours of prime time, not even 5 days a week. Every other time of the day, they're just like playing stuff in syndication. And that's what these networks are now, like these Pluto
What's interesting about it is
Roku.
like back then you could watch something and then something else would come on, and it would be a completely different flavor. And so you wouldn't have to binge one show forever and be done with it. You could still binge television. It would just be a mixed bag, and you'd have variety. And your attention would be, would follow a different rhythm, basically. So this would be interesting to see what happens in terms of like television writing, because now you wouldn't necessarily have to make every episode a cliffhanger, and you wouldn't have to write for the binge. It could just be, this is a good show that happens regularly.
I am so ready for episodic television to come back.
Me too. Me too.
It's because there's we talked about it earlier in the show, the idea that there's these shows like Westworld and Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and The Rings of Power.
They all
and
feel
even
the
Andor.
same.
They're giving you 8 to 12 episodes or 8 to 13 episodes. Most of the time it's usually 8 or 10, but like Andor has 12. They're gonna take 2 years to give us season 2 of Andor, to give us season 2 of House of the Dragon and The Rings of Power. All of those shows have no more than 10 episodes apiece. I mean, Andor has 12, House of the Dragon has 10, and Rings of Power had 8. But all of those shows, now that we waited years for them to come out with their first season, we're gonna have to wait 2 years to get another set of 8, 10, or 12 episodes. Whereas back in the day, you would get they would crank out 22 episodes a season every year. Like I mean, the actors are constantly employed because like by the time the one season starts airing, you're starting to basically prepare to go into production on the second one, which means the writing room is already at work. The producers are like, they're building sets if they have to build new sets. It's like a constantly churning machine. So from an employment standpoint, it's better. And then from a viewership standpoint, I used to remember, I'm like, a show ran for 5 seasons. It would have 100 episodes, and they would do that so that now it's eligible for syndication. All of a sudden the channel is making back a lot of its money, so they're willing to greenlight 7, 8, 9 seasons, whereas nowadays Netflix, they just cancel stuff after 3 seasons because they're like, well, we got all the subscribers from this that we can get, we're not going to do anymore. Or like networks cancel stuff because if you have 5 seasons of 8 episodes, that's not even 50. So you're nowhere close to syndication. The show cost keeps going up because actor contracts keep going up. You have to renegotiate stuff. The per episode budgets go up because you're getting bigger and better, whatever. But in general, things go up cost-wise. So then shows get canceled after 5 years, and you still feel like you didn't get enough of the show. Whereas I discovered The Deadliest Catch, and I'm like, I'm never going to watch The Deadliest Catch. The Deadliest Catch became one of my favorite pastimes because I would just turn on the Discovery Network, or Discovery Channel, in the afternoon, and I could go through 10 episodes because I'm not really watching the show outside of just every so often. It's like background noise sometimes. But it was just on, and you're not having to make an active decision on a piece of content every 10 minutes. I like that.
Exactly. So I think this could be the new beginning for television, and bringing back a more traditional model would be healthier for everybody who works in television, and I think it could lead to better content in the end. Also, we live our lives by the television right now, and that's something that really changed in the last 10, 15 years. Now, if we go back to just stumbling upon stuff, we don't have to live and die by, a show. We can sort of remove ourselves from content and just watch an episode that happens to be in syndication that pops up, and the advertisers will make their money and the Roku people will make their money, and we don't have to just glue ourselves to the television. So that's, I don't know. Roland, we want to button this. Is there any final thought you want to give to the future of television?
The future of television is sounding quite nostalgic, if you ask me. But I don't know. This is interesting. Well, I don't want to give my full opinion just because I want to see what Roku does with this, the results from this, and maybe we can come back to this on a later episode. It's worth a talk. I
think so. Well, that's been a good talk thus far. Thus far. So yeah, that far. Vote on this, that, or thus, and we'll get back to you on that. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Please stay with us. We're going to be talking some more Bollywood Virgin stuff pretty soon. Just like and subscribe, and watch the stuff. Be part of the conversation. We like talking with you people. And now we have to talk about Henry Cavill and The Witcher. Magdalena took a look at that and had some things to say. Let's hear what those things were.
Speaking of balance of power in the DCEU, Superman... he's more of the Witcher now. Henry Cavill also celebrated his birthday this week. The star of The Witcher keeps hitting it out of the park with every project he touches. Sort of. And with the new ownership at Warner Bros. Discovery looking to revitalize the Superman franchise, we could see Cavill don the cape once again. God, please, don't let Cavill touch the cape ever again. He should just stick to Geralt. He's Geralt. It's Geralt. It's Geralt. Henry Cavill has legally changed his name to Liam Hemsworth because that is the only explanation for this bullshit. The only person who cared about the show left. Yup. Do you want people to stop watching your show? Because that's how you get people to stop watching your show. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, internet's lost it, and this is pretty much what's happening. Let me give you a little bit of a rundown and fill you in. I'm sure you guys heard.
Everything's changed.
Henry Cavill has left The Witcher and he's returning to play Superman in the new DC movies coming up. So he's stepping down as a role as Geralt of Rivia, which was, in my opinion, and I'm sure everyone else's, he was born to play this role. He was so good at it. You could really feel the passion and the love for the source material and all the books and games that he had, and he openly spoke and talked about. I'm gonna go back to that point because that's a very important thing to remember. But yeah, Liam Hemsworth, which is the worst.
I care how you speak. He's my brother.
Oh no, I mean not the worst. I don't know the guy, but he's not as talented as either of his brothers.
He's adopted.
Whether it's Chris or Luke, I think they both better actors, and I think they would have worked better as Gerald. But yeah, they went for the least important or least talented Hemsworth brother. We know Liam Hemsworth from things like The Hunger Games. He was married to Miley Cyrus. He's been sort of trying to make his 5 minutes, and you know, he got end. Anyway, so what he said: my journey as Geralt of Rivia has been filled with both monsters and adventurers, and alas, I will be laying down my medallion and my swords for season 4. That's what he wrote on his Instagram. See, like, he even knows what to say. A lot of people say that if Liam's taking over, you might as well cancel it, because Cavill was actually the only thing that was holding the show together and what was clearly working and had some sort of drive or like relation and closeness to the original source material, which, speaking as a national Polish person, I hold very dear and close to my heart. Like, do not mess with the source material. And speaking of that, there's a lot of insights that, as I mentioned before, Cavill is a huge fan of games and the books. And what happened was the show started drifting way away from the original source material. And there was the former writer-producer who publicly stated that some of the colleagues actively even disliked the source material. So I don't think Cavill would have left if the Superman wasn't on the table. I also don't think Superman was enough of a push for him to like just drop The Witcher if he actually would have been very close and believed in material. So
That's how it starts.
How it all started. Let's go into how it's all started. So we saw him reprise the role of Superman at the end of the Black Adam. It was in the post-credits sequence. Then he also made the Instagram post where he stated that he's coming back and he's super excited about the role, and his hopes and kind of joy for the Superman it's very much there, and we're all very believing. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I really think it's time for something new. I don't like repetitiveness in the characters and the actors that are playing them. Like, look what happened to James Bond. Like, Daniel Craig got a bit stale towards the end. Speaking of Bond, a fun fact that recently resurfaced this week was that Henry Cavill was actually a runner-up alongside Daniel Craig to play Bond. So, could it be that he's going to be a new Bond? I mean, obviously, Broccolis are still saying they still have a couple of years to decide and stuff, but I could see that. I could see Henry Cavill playing new James Bond. But yeah, it's unconfirmed. It's just our own little speculations, but let me know in the comments. Is that plausible theory? Also, there was this speculation that he's going to put a wide wig for the House of Dragon, which it was ridiculous. A theory, but obviously he completely dismissed it. It's not happening, but it was an interesting thought experiment. But no, he's passing on his wide wig but onto Liam Hemsworth in The Witcher, not in the House of Dragons. He's not touching that.
I'll just have to rewire.
So, is it a good idea that Cavill is touching the cape once again? Yes, no. Maybe a different question. Am I happy that he's leaving The Witcher? Absolutely freaking not. He was the only thing that was holding this show together, and I'm sure I'm following a lot of others' opinion out there that we just simply are not gonna watch it. I much rather play Wild Hunt again than watch the third season with Liam Hemsworth as Gerald. Like, it's not adding up. It's not adding up to me. Am I excited that he took the Superman role? I understand that was like the final push for him to leave The Witcher, and it's probably for the best, because I understand when you don't want to be attached to the project, especially as a fan of the series, if they are almost disgracing the original source material. I think we can all sympathize with Cavill, and I don't think we're mad at him for his decision. We sort of understand. But yeah, Netflix shouldn't bother. Speaking of Netflix, wonder what's gonna happen with Enola Holmes. Is Henry Cavill going to burn all the bridges? It could be interesting next few months. But yeah, enough of Henry Cavill. Like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments, what do you think about this whole mess? And yeah, catch you guys next week, jumping right into our under reviews. Catch you later. Bye.
I don't know if you guys knew this, but I'm a Bollywood virgin. Yeah. Well, I had to tell you guys. I haven't seen that many, but after this year I've seen a few Bollywood movies, and I'm getting a taste for them. This week, Dan made us consult a doctor. And this was our first screening of Munna by M.B.B.S. And it was fine. It wasn't my favorite. It was a story about a man pretending to be a doctor to please his parents. And they show up and watch him basically run a sham hospital, which is entertaining to watch. And then he's exposed as being a fraud, and in his deep shame tries to actually become a doctor. And along the way, we have some real heartwarming moments. We have some hijinks, and it, I don't know, it felt like an older, like a 90s comedy movie in America, and I found it a little predictable. That's where I'll draw the line here. Roland, what did you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm definitely getting those same vibes. It was cute. I liked it. There were some funny moments, you know. And then every once in a while they would just like go crazy with it, and I'd be like, okay, I see you, Bollywood, and I appreciate you. How, you know, I will say this. Usually with the songs, I skip them because I've never been really much of a musical guy. Just gonna be totally honest. When he is trying to comfort that kid that's trying to kill himself, spoilers, that song I would kind of listen to, and then like he's talking about like, and Sarah, I don't remember the name of the actual person, and talking about how he loved her and blah blah blah, and then he was talking about like heartbreak and all this stuff like that, and the kid was like, what did you do next? Well, then Karen. That was funny. I like that. That was a good little bit. There was some cuteness and some heart moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The movie has heart. These Bollywood movies all have heart, which is really nice and refreshing to a cynical American like me. And it's refreshing. The entire time I was watching this, I was like, this feels very familiar. Not in terms of plot, but I was like, what does this feel like? In the look and in the writing and in the attitudes. And what I finally decided, and you tell me if you agree here, this felt like an early Adam Sandler movie to me. It felt
interesting.
It felt like Billy Madison. It felt like Billy Madison. It's like that whole story of a rich kid who's just sort of like throwing his life away, and he has to go back through school, and he has some heartwarming moments, and he has some really ridiculous hijinks ensue as well. And there's something similar in this where this guy who's been pretending to be a doctor goes back to a medical college and tries to prove himself and teaches his teacher something along the way, you know. And with Adam Sandler, like, you know, it's an Adam Sandler movie, so it's really goofy and really raunchy in some points. But that's what this movie, I was watching it the whole time. I was like, I feel like I'm watching Billy Madison with different actors in a different language.
Yeah. Dan, what do you think of our takes so far? I'm seeing some faces, but I want to hear your voice.
Yeah, no, this is not what I thought you guys would say. It's definitely, I think I come at it from a very biased standpoint because this movie, I believe it came out in like 2003. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I was probably like around 8 years old at most when the movie came out. And so I've, been a fan of it since. And without telling you how old I am exactly, that's basically like 2 decades of me watching this movie and enjoying it. And the director Rajkumar Hirani, who made the movie, and then the producer Vidya Vinod Chopra, like I think is his movie company, like something Chopra Productions, that you saw the logo of at the beginning. And the two of them, the producer director, they're sort of like a working duo. Like they do a lot of stuff together. One produces, one directs. This was like their first big collaboration, and it kind of like put them on the map. And this was a movie that was a mainstream Bollywood film. It wasn't like an indie level kind of a thing. You have, A-list cast members here. You have Sanjay Dutt on the left, his father Sunil Dutt on the right, who, by the way, Sunil Dutt, the father of Sanjay Dutt, passed away after this movie came out, or I think maybe even before the movie came out. So this ended up being his last on-screen role, and he was a legendary actor, like in the business and in Bollywood for a long time. And his son, like Sanjay Dutt, has been going through a lot of like rough, basically a rough patch, if you want to call it, more than that even, because not too long after this movie and a sequel to this was made, he got jailed in India for several years for trumped up weapons possession charges. And there's like, because he was into politics over there, and politics in India and the subcontinent in general can get really messy. And so there's actually a biopic that they made about him called Sanju, the actor Sanjay Dutt, that kind of also has parts of this movie that are reenacted. So I'm giving you some background, but the point is, I have watched this movie so many times at this point, and it's not like I grew to love it. I loved it the first time I watched it. This thing was an absolute phenomenon, like a cultural phenomenon. People were making parodies of it. People were gonna copy it. It was a movie that, for mainstream Bollywood movies at the time in the early 2000s, a lot of them were just glamour and they weren't really good on story. There were very few movies that had something really important or poignant to say. This movie, on the other hand, has, this very specific message of the way our medical system in India works. It's kind of broken. The wrong things are getting priority. Like, like they kind of show you like this guy's dying on a stretcher, and they still make you line up and fill out a form before they'll admit you into the emergency room and take, stop you from dying. Like those are the kind of things which, again, to an American audience, like seems like strange, but again, you have to kind of have the context of what the movie's trying to critique, and it's not America, it's like the culture, or at least at the time when this movie came out. I don't know how much has changed since, but like how the medical system worked in India. So, and that in addition to then when he goes to college, the medical school, and how they function, just like you immediately, what I liked about this movie is it both did not pull its punches. It didn't get too, for me, it didn't get too corny. And maybe, again, I've watched it so many times, some of the corny stuff doesn't really hit me the same way anymore. But right from the beginning, you have the dean of the college, who's got this one philosophy of, I don't love my patients. A patient is just a diseased body that I have to treat. Versus, Munna Bhai, like Murali Prasad Sharma, he's like, love and care can go a long way and could be just as good as any medical treatment you can provide.
It's a wonderful message.
Kind of these diapoles. It's from the beginning, and then like I'm just like fundamentally from a writing standpoint, that was just fantastic, because right there's an inherent conflict of ideology, and that powers this entire movie. So I love that about this film.
And it was I think because it's set up so well, you can sort of see all of the dominoes lined up from the beginning. And that's what I mean by it's predictable. And that didn't take away from the experience. It was still touching and smart and funny and surprising in some moments.
Yeah.
But,
I love this scene where
yeah.
he's, because the whole joke is like, he's like, yeah, I don't want to marry your daughter anymore. So, you know, you're a good guy. Then he tells her like the person who he is. Who's the lucky girl? He asked the dean, and he's like, oh, you know, Dr. Suman, and it's, I love the moment because it's like, because of course that is actually his, yeah. So
Right.
if you
Yeah.
watch the movie, it's hilarious because then that laughter therapy thing, that was a great little like character thing that they did with Bowen Irani's character on the left there.
Yeah.
And watching this, one, to compare it to an Adam Sandler movie, I could absolutely see an American remake of something like this. It feels like a very American type of story, where, the character is relatable. And one of the best scenes, for me, it wasn't the most touching scene, but it's the scene that sort of sets up the entire premise of the movie, which is where he gets called out as a fraud. They captured that beautifully, and for all of the pageantry and corniness of a Bollywood, production, that really struck me as real. And that's not a moment you see a whole lot. If somebody gets called out as a fraud, even in American movies, it's either like a big dramatic thing in front of all the people in the town or whatever, or it's played off as a joke, But
and it's usually at the end. This was like very beginning.
And the thing is, like, they captured the feeling of shame so authentically that I felt shame in that moment watching it, and I thought that's good filmmaking.
To me,
So,
and that, like you said, and you can continue your point after this, but I just wanted to briefly point out, to me, like, if that scene wasn't as effective as it was, the rest of the movie wouldn't work. Because the
Exactly.
whole movie is built around, you start this guy's on the top of the world doing everything. He's got this parents fooled. It's all down to a science at this point. They show up, they convert the whole town into an hospital. But then they tear that man down to the bones, like literally to the bones. It's so early to build him back up throughout the rest of the movie. It's brilliant.
And I would even go so far as to say American movies don't really feature real shame. We don't have shame, and I think that's what was so refreshing about this, is that shame and negative feelings, like movies, they'll make you feel sad or they'll make you feel pity for somebody, but to really feel something, a human emotion, that goes beyond, like, because he cares about his family, it turns out, as much as he's been trying to fool the town and his parents and all this stuff. He can't run from the truth, and he can't run from this deeper feeling of inadequacy that he actually has to make a change in his life. So much, I think that maybe the closest we got to that is something like Better Call Saul, where he realizes he's a little bit of a joke, and everybody sees him as a joke, and he's not living the life he wants, and so he has to reinvent himself and turn his life around because he feels this deep and profound human inadequacy. And we don't see that in movies all the time. We usually just kind of like the guy, or, oh, he's a lovable loser, so, this takes the lovable out of it, and he has to earn the lovable.
Yeah.
The circuit character in the movie, he's got this whole knife flipping thing that he does all the time. That became like a psychotic thing. Like my younger brother is like still trying to, like, he's like, I want to do what he does with the pocket knife because it's so cool, though, without like cutting yourself.
A butterfly knife it's tricky to do, but
right?
It's
exactly. It's that, I mean, you could do some damage if you don't do it right. Like, it's like, and the way they talk in this movie, I know, because this is something probably lost in translation, but the way they're talking in Hindi, there's this street mafia kind of an accent of Hindi that they use. They kind of pointed out throughout the movie, like when one time the dean calls out the janitor on the office, he's like, mind your language, what are you saying? Like, because the way they kind of talk is it's considered this very low class way of talking, and it's not very formal, whereas they're like, you work at a hospital, like, so that, again, they do virtually everything they possibly can to put Bowman Irani's character, which was, I'm forgetting his name, the dean of the college, with Munna Bhai on the other side, and then like how different they are. What I most take away from this movie every time, however, is like I said at the beginning of the movie, they break this man down to his bones, because ultimately everything that he's been doing up until that point in the story, it's to satisfy his parents and their expectations of him. And he says like, I was scared, so I lied to you, and but the intention was good. But then the best moment, again, with the context being that he himself, Sanjay Dutt, had gone through a really, really terrible time in the years leading up to this movie. His career was also in a dumpster because he was getting terrible roles after terrible roles. So he wasn't landing any good roles in movies either. And his personal life was, all over the place. And his father convinced him to take on this movie from a director that was basically unknown. And then he played a role in this movie. And then there's this like huge cathartic moment at the end where they hug and stuff. And if you have the context of what real life, everything that was happening around the time this movie was being made and the years since, and watching that scene, not only just the story itself, but it makes it so, like, I cried watching this movie, not gonna lie, and like shed a few tears, and because I was like, I'm gonna watch this movie and fully take it in, because it's been like, I realized, like 3 or 4 years since I watched the movie, and it still gets me to this day. And then of course Daniyal had passed away not too long after this movie came out. So I bet you, like Sanjay, that probably looks back at this movie very fondly, and with a certain sense of tragedy as well, because it was like the last time he worked on something with his dad.
I mean, that's a wonderful shot to have cinematically, and I think to have done the movie because his dad advised him to work on it with him, to have that full arc as a character and to be going through that, to end on that, and to have this professionally produced shot of you hugging your father in this alternate reality is such a spiritually moving thing. And yeah, was it my favorite thing that you've introduced us to? No, but I see the value in it, and I was touched by it, and more and more I am enjoying these deviations into the Bollywood.
Yeah, the magic hug, the Jadoo Ki Chappi, like that too became. It's still to this day. You go to anybody in India and you're like, you mention to them Jadoo Ki Chappi or a magical hug or magical hug, they'd be like, they know immediately what you're talking about. It is iconic, like it's weaved into the fabric of like Indian cinema culture. So. Yeah, no, and like I said, there is a sequel to this movie that they made, which wasn't released. So the second movie is called Lage Raho Munna Bhai, which basically means keep it up, Munna Bhai. And the way they approached the story was, they made it a few years later, and it wasn't a direct sequel in the sense they didn't continue this story. They just said like that these two main characters, Munna Bhai and Circuit, his like sidekick, the two of them are there. But everything else, they brought some of the actors back playing new characters, and it was like a new premise almost. Like they're still like the same. They're still like these hoodlums almost, but then they're put in a totally different situation. And in that world of the story of that movie, this story never happened. So it's like an anthology in that sense. They were gonna do a third one where they would go to America, they would go to the US, Munna Bhai and Circuit, and they even made like a promotional video, like an ad for like a teaser. But then he got jailed for a few years, and some Sanjay Dutt never got a chance to make it. And then years, like I think it was like 3 or 5 years later, then he finally got released. They made that. He's been doing other stuff. I mean, now he's much older, if you see a recent picture of him, but. No, this is one of those movies that it's considered a classic from its time, and people still remember it fondly, and I think new audiences still finding it. So, I liked it. I hope you guys had a good time.
Yeah,
I like the catchphrase that he had. That was awesome. Oh gosh, what was it? What was it? The no pressure.
The tension nahi lene ka mamu. Like he's like, no tension is what the subtitles probably said. It's like don't worry, no tension. Mamu is like uncle, basically. Mamu is like the translation of that is Mamu would be your mother's brother. So you would call him uncle in English. I think in English you just have uncle, could be any number of those relationships. Where in Hindi, like Mamu, Chachu, like they're all depending on if it's your mother's brother or your dad's brother. Like there's different names for those relationships. So that's where that comes from.
All right.
That was hilarious.
Well, if you're enjoying watching us react to these Bollywood classics, subscribe, share, talk to us about it. Make your own suggestions because it's a real trip for people who aren't super familiar with it to watch these things. But thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing and commenting. Join us. We're back every week talking about all the stuff. Now we have a brand new Rolan Underground segment. Been a while, so let's take a look at that.
Oh, my light's off. Dang it. Hi, welcome to Roll Underground, where we talk about what's happening in the world above while in my grandparents' basements. I'm your host, the birthday boy. Hi, guys. So it's my birthday. As you can tell, I got the basic balloons and everything. You can't really see them. Anywho, so yeah, it was good. It's not really my birthday anymore. It's past. I'm gonna tell you what zodiac sign I am. If you were a true fan, you would know when my birthday was. But it was great. It was a good birthday. It was a great birthday. I got a lot of things, including a new camera. I really hope that matched up in the edit. I hope it did. It probably didn't. Let's continue. Anywho. So yeah, it's my birthday. I want to talk a little bit about birthdays. Why do we celebrate them? Why are people so mean to leap year babies? What do you do during the birthday song and when they're singing it to you? These are questions we might get into this week. I don't know. Don't rush me.
Not so long ago, in the mysterious land of Hickory, North Carolina, Rolan was celebrating his birthday.
So you've been out of high school for like 13 years.
I'm 22. 22.
Over 21.
22.
22.
So my birthday this year was pretty chill. It was very nice. Hung out with my girlfriend. We did the free day thing, like where you go all around town, see where you can get free stuff or places. Here's a list. What this list doesn't tell you is that pretty much every place you need the app. You need the app. Bro, just look at my license. Look at this. I'm a customer. I was gonna buy some other stuff here, but I'm not anymore. What's going on? Now I look like an idiot. I'm wasting your time. You're wasting my time. I hate it. It was the worst. We went to like maybe Dale, 3 places, and it was garbage. I actually asked my family not to do the birthday song because it was stressing me out. I never know what to do. It's ridiculous. What do? You just sit there. Do you smile? Do you clap? Is clapping can you sing to your own birthday song? Be honest, can you sing to your own birthday? Has anybody done? Please let me know if anybody's ever done this, because that sounds like a baller move. I just went for cookies. I'm not even that big fan of a cake, honestly. A cake is too rich for me. I can't do that. It's too much. A birthday, it's stressful. Really. When you get to a certain age, it's just like, oh, I'm turning 1 year older, but it's not even that. Really, if you think about it, it's just stress. You're popular for once. Has anybody ever noticed that? You're like, your phone is just blowing up. It's like, happy birthday, happy birthday. You get phone calls from family members, and you're like, oh, hi, thank you. Yes. I mean, it's nice. It's appreciated, but it's just like weird, because it's like, then you get salty when people don't wish you a happy birthday. You have this ego start going in your head. It's terrible. This is a true story. This is literally what happened on my birthday. I was waiting for a couple people to wish me a happy birthday, and they didn't for the longest time. One waited until like 10 or so o'clock, and it's like, what can you do? Because you want to like snap them, you want to send them a text, but it's like, oh, I can't, because then they're gonna be like, oh gosh, yeah, happy birthday, by the way. You want them to come to the thought of their own, like, oh yeah, it's Roland's birthday. Maybe I should wish him a happy birthday. And my girlfriend was like, should I text them? I was like, no, don't text him, because it's weird, because it's also a childish thing of like, why don't you wish me a happy birthday? You know, it's weird. I really wanted her to go behind my back and just like text them, you know, just like, hey, you should text Rolan happy birthday. I don't know. That's the thing, you know, your ego just goes through the roof. See, I was gonna say the beginning of the year babies, they should feel lucky, but at the same time, they shouldn't. But let me say why I think they're kind of lucky. If they're like January babies, they can just make a list of who didn't wish them a happy birthday and who did. And whoever did, you know, you can wish them a happy birthday, and whoever didn't, they can, you know, whatever. I know for a fact that I told one of my friends happy birthday. I didn't remember if I got him a gift. I was pretty sure I got him a gift, but I guess I didn't. I don't know. I have a terrible memory. But apparently he was salty because he didn't say happy birthday. I was so upset. This is a really close friend of mine. He texted me at like 12:11, something along that, like a.m. And he was like, oh, happy birthday, by the way. And I just responded with, too late. And I haven't talked to him. It's very petty. Just because I'm turning a year older doesn't mean I'm becoming mature. Age is irrelevant. But I do feel bad for, you know, beginning of the year, like January babies, or really any winter babies, especially like December babies, because a lot of times, you know, their parents are just going to merge Christmas and their birthday together. It's ridiculous if they didn't. I don't know why they don't just like make a fake birthday. You know, like they make a birthday in the summertime, so it's like evenly matched. You have your birthday, and then 6 months after you get Christmas, and then 6 months you have your birthday. You know, it's make it even. But no, those poor things, they just, and then they expect us to get 2 gifts within a month. Are you crazy? No, I'm not doing that. I don't have money to be spending like that. That's crazy. I just spent all my money on my other friends and family's Christmas gifts. It's insane. I don't want to do that. You know. And by the way, speaking of babies who have terrible birthday, leap year babies. Those poor things. Oh my gosh. Everybody's so mean to leap year babies, and I'm not here for it. I'm sick of it. You know what? Leap year babies, stand up for yourself. The next time somebody does a stupid joke, as in like, oh my gosh, you're not turning 16, you're turning 4 because of leap year. Screw you. You're a terrible person. You're horrible. You're truly. Oh my gosh, I don't know why this enrages me like it does, but I think it's stupid. I think it's a dumb joke. It's like, oh, it didn't make the day, so I guess it doesn't count. I don't agree with that. That's ridiculous. Be nice to them. You know, I saw like this guy who like, he finally turns like 64, but they're like, the sweet 16 of this man, or like something stupid. Let the man be. He's 64, he can almost earn a retirement check. Let the man be. He's heard the joke his entire life. You know? I'm tired. We're gonna move on. You know what's crazy? I don't even know anybody who has a leap year birthday. My parents have a leap year anniversary. People still do dumb jokes. I don't know. Birthdays are like Christmas now. You know, it's like you wake up and you thought you'd be excited, but it's like, oh, this feels kind of like a regular day. I guess it's still special, but I don't know. Birthdays, they've always been weird to me. I've always tried to do something special for birthdays. I like planning things. I like planning parties. I planned a roast one time. That went terrible. There were some really good jokes, but like, yeah, we were just like, we were out of it, you know, like we were just tired, and like it wasn't, and you have to plan. You really have to plan a roast. And if somebody's a slacker, you know, then their jokes aren't going to be as good. And then there's always like somebody that's like super sensitive and it's like, oh, I don't want to be included. But then they'll chime in on the whole roast. It's like, no, you said you weren't going to do this, so you can't. No. If you don't want to be included, then you're not included. You can't say, oh, nobody can make fun of me, but you can be on the sidelines and heckle. No, I don't agree with it. It's too much. I'm going too much. I apologize. But a roast is fun. I don't really recommend it. I do recommend like getting out of town. You know, like go to an escape room or rock climb or something along those lines. Just do something. You know what else is just like kind of pointless? It's just like those birthday shirts. You know, it's like, oh, today's my birthday. You know, like you have whole article of clothes. You can really only wear that once a year. You know, you really can't do that. Or like, oh, I'm turning 22 today. You can wear that once in your life. Once in your life you can wear it. It's such a waste of money. It's ridiculous. I've seen that. Let's wrap this up. I'm getting a little too crazy. I'm like rambling. I just want to thank everybody who wished me a happy birthday. Thank you. I appreciate it. to those who didn't, it's fine. I was, I guess, a little offended, but it's like whatever. You know, I'm a grown person. It's whatever. So shout out to all my Gemini homies and have a good birthday, y'all. It's funny seeing these.
Okay, guys. It's been a few years since Black Panther came out. There's been a lot of anticipation for this next movie that we're going to watch this week. And their first trailer was basically the Avatar trailer. Wasn't impressed. And now we're doing an entire sequel to a superhero movie without the superhero. And I even read at a certain point that they actually tweeted out from his Twitter account to promote the movie, which I don't love.
Wow.
So it could be his family. Like his family could have, like
maybe, but I just gotta say, I have no stake in this movie being good or bad. I'm not a Marvel fan generally, and I don't know. I really don't even know what to think of it at this point. Are you guys excited for it? Should people be excited for it? What are your feelings about it?
I'm still thinking about the tweet thing. Oh my gosh.
Weird, right?
I feel like if you are a famous person, I feel like you should, the family should delete. It's just weird to, I mean, you can keep it up, but I don't think you should be using it. That's just, I feel like that's.
Yeah, well, I mean, to extend that line of thinking, like, to make his death a part of the marketing for this, it seems kind of in bad taste to me. You know,
I mean,
to put
I
his
think
face
it's
on
meant
a
to all
mural
be
like
like it's
that.
a tribute to
I
him.
know.
In the movie, it's a tribute, but yeah.
But is there any, like...
It's kind of like hard to avoid not mentioning his name. Well, they're not actively putting his name on everything either.
We've said it before. There's a million different ways to go about this. You could recast the same character, which that was the original thinking. But they're really just taking time to expand the world, and he'll be replaced by somebody in this next one wearing the Black Panther suit. But
I think it's gonna be Shuri, for what it's
Shuri?
worth. That's been the trailers, you know, like you saw that image put up. I don't know. I guess for somebody who might, I'll put up a spoil. I guess I already spoiled it. If the people who went to the premiere already probably know all this, but like the review embargo for this lifts on November 8th, so which is not that far from when we're talking about this. And yeah, I mean, everybody keeps saying this was a great performance for her, Shuri, who's played by Letitia Wright. And then Angela Bassett. There's actually some Oscar buzz for Best Supporting Actress for Angela Bassett, who plays, you know, she was the Queen Mother in the last movie. But I think in this movie, because Chadwick Boseman's Black Panther and T'Challa passes away, she ends up, I guess, becoming the Queen of Wakanda. Because I don't think like Shuri gets that. And since neither of those characters, like Shuri or T'Challa, technically had kids, so I don't know like what the line of succession would be. There,
well,
so
isn't the line of succession like who beats the other one in a fight?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how they're gonna play that out. I mean, there's also M'Baku who lost that fight in the last movie, so he might be a natural fit to be the new king, right?
Yeah. But I don't know. Like, is the enthusiasm around this movie about Wakanda? Are people really Wakanda crazy?
Oh yeah. It's Wakanda's probably like the most popular fictional world that people would love to go to in the world today. Like I think between Wakanda and Pandora, I'm actually kind of, because to me, I enjoyed Black Panther.
Wakanda's
very
closer.
Much. And you know, culturally, like I think they took a lot of inspiration from various African cultures and the diaspora of whether it's music instruments, like the soundtrack was fantastic. We talked about this last week as well. I keep forgetting the name of the composer for the movie, who actually also then went on to do the fantastic intro for The Mandalorian. Do you guys remember? I forgot. He's got a like hard to pronounce name, but yeah, so the music was great. The cinematography, I mean, you know, the way they kind of talk and the costume design and overall, just the presentation, the production design of this movie was fantastic. Black Panther was a Best Picture nominee at the Oscars, so this sequel has a lot to live up to. You know?
It does. And then I don't know much about Namor or
Ludwig
that's how you say
Göransson.
it, correct?
That's the name of the composer. Yeah. But
and
by the way, it's not Namor. They changed the pronunciation because in this movie, they've introduced Namor as not the king of Atlantis. He's the king of Talocan. And so it's going more into the Aztec heritage. And in fact, he says his name, I think his people call him Kukulkan. Yeah. But his enemies call him Namor. That's there's one part of me that definitely thought of like
actually as long as we're comparing this to Avatar a little bit, is this basically going to be the underwater sequel to, you know, like we went to Pandora, now we're going underwater in Pandora. We went to Wakanda, now we're going to see Atlantis. I mean, it feels
not Atlantis.
Not Atlantis.
What are we calling it?
Talocan.
Kalukan?
Talocan. I think they pronounce so it's pronounced with like this a Spanish dialect, so
right.
It's Talocan.
So I mean, are they going to create nations for every ethnicity?
In the comic ship Atlantis, I think all they did here was they changed it up so that they're not my camera died. But it
always happens at some point.
Yeah, usually towards
it's
the
when
end
we
of the
go
show.
too hard on the reviews.
That's how it goes.
No, I'm still here though. But no, they want to differentiate themselves from DC and like Jason Momoa's Aquaman. So I think that's where this comes from. And I like it. I mean, honestly, regardless of how well it pans out, I appreciate the effort. And then when you consider the fact that, you know, they didn't just take that as a means to completely get away from the comic book version of the character, you're getting a Namor, which by the way reminds me of like a telenovela character of some kind. Namor.
I do like the Aztec take. I think that's a very interesting.
He's got winged feet, is what I was going to say.
Mean, so yeah, it does feel like they're kind of creating mythical ethnicities. Does it not?
What do you mean?
We have an African.
It's based on Aztec. It's based on the Aztec culture.
Right.
It's a fictional country, yes, but it's very much based on real, like, cultural and real historical civilizations.
I'm just saying, like, is that the move? You know, are we like we did a Shang-Chi, we did Wakanda, we're gonna do Talocan, you know, like is that?
We also did like Fantasia, Never Ending Story, you know.
What was that?
Well,
White.
I don't even. I'm not even.
Exactly.
But I mean,
I've never seen the movie.
I think the whole point is that there's all these fantastic and like magical places that are around the world.
Yeah.
They just happen to be non-American because there's so much more. I mean, you go to any of like the seventh wonders of the world and majority of them are not in North America. So that's kind of the thought process, is making this more of an international appeal, you know, seeing.
I'm just curious, like, about the diversity aspect of it. I'm not sure if that's like an explicit goal, and if they're gonna start doing this like an Indian. Will there be Bollywood Marvel crossover type
there's
stuff?
already in Eternals. There's Kamal Nanjiani, who's actually originally from Pakistan, so like it was a really nice mix where he plays like this, like the Bollywood superstar character. Which the movie was terrible. They did a complete injustice to what his Bollywood little sequence that they had in the middle of the movie. But nonetheless, they do have an Indian character in there. And then Miss Marvel.
What's unique about Shang-Chi, Wakanda, and now Talocan is that they create entire mythical nations, and that's what the spectacle is here. That's like what you're saying is the world building appeal. They do the music, they do the settings, the costumes, and they create like basically a super culture. And they've done it, I think 3 times now, you know. And are we going to see more of that? I'm just curious about.
We saw that in Aquaman with Atlantis and like the 7 kingdoms under the sea. So it's not even just Atlantis. I mean, Gotham City is not a real place. Metropolis is not a real place. Although they're meant to be these American, you know, big cities which are built on Chicago, New York, Pittsburgh.
Those still feel like modern day America. not necessarily Aquaman, but
I mean, Gotham is in New Jersey. Fun fact.
Well, Black Adam and Kahndaq. You know,
yeah,
we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I think it's, to me, that's not so much a critique on the, I don't take it as a critique on this idea that, hey, why don't we just base it on some real, because like, for example, think about this. They put out The Woman King, which, yes, it is fictionalized to a certain degree, but at the same time, that it's a movie that is based on real history, a real kingdom that was around. Yeah. And that movie got a great amount of support from the critics, but and it did relatively well at the box office, but not nearly as well as this Black Panther movie is going to do. So you could say, why not just base it on some real life, a real country with a real history and all that? And I think the answer there is quite simple. This is an MCU movie at the end of the day, right? It's an MCU movie that is trying to do more than just the average MCU film might do with just, a comic book character. I think the strength of the Black Panther franchise has been that they've leaned so heavily into the cultural and the geopolitical aspects of what the Black Panther character brings to the table, because otherwise he would just be like any other character in the MCU. Not to mention the Black Panther character on its own as like a superhero is not particularly intriguing. Like his set of powers are what? Like he's got the generic super strength. He can't really fly. I guess he could be fast, and he's got like these pointy claws, which could be
I mean, it's kind of a lot like Iron Man or even Batman.
But he's not really even Iron Man. So I think like they realize that Black Panther as a character on his own isn't maybe the most intriguing. Like for example, Namor has those winged feet, like a Greek god, literally, which is in the movie.
Yeah.
And they have they wear like vibranium armor that looks very different to like any vibranium we've seen before in the previous Black Panther and MCU films. But like Namor alone is probably more intriguing and interesting as a character in terms of his power set than Black Panther. Not to mention all the other characters we've met. So I think
maybe that is the right
character for that.
Maybe that is the right move, because the fascinating part about Wakanda is it's this super advanced society that's been invisible, and there is a culture, and it's this isolationist country that's got its own culture and customs and mythology.
Which I think what plays into this sequel is that at the end of the first movie, they decided to come out and say, hey, UN, we are a lot more than just some small poor country in the middle of Africa. In fact, we are probably the most technologically advanced nation in the world of the MCU. And so I think part of what we see in this movie, at least the trailers have indicated, is sort of a aftermath of that revelation and how that's going to change the balance of power on the world stage that you see. I think there's a scene in the UN where the Queen Mother is there talking. I don't know in the timeline wise. I think this takes place after the blip. It definitely takes place after the blip actually, but whereabouts does it fit into everything else? It's a little fluid. I don't know if it takes place before or after, I don't know, the events of She-Hulk or Miss Marvel, or does it take place at the same time as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? I think that one of the producers, Nate Moore, said as much, that it takes place around the same time as the next Ant-Man movie, and it takes place after She-Hulk. I don't know if that's even consequential.
It's weird to piece the whole MCU together. At some point they'll have to come out with an exhaustive list of.
Or you can go to Disney Plus.
To watch
they have a chronological order playlist. You can.
Well, look, good for them. Good for them. Okay. Yeah. So they have that. So make sure before you watch this movie that you watch every single thing on that list, so that you can watch this with all the proper context.
Of course.
Yeah, we'll come back and we'll talk about it next week, and we'll see how they did. I hope it's good, because I'm going to watch it and I'm going to see it. So yeah, follow us, see what we think, tell us what you think. We're on Instagram, Spotify, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all the things. Follow us on all the things. We'll be back talking about more stuff in the movies, on television, and the internet. This has been fun. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Deuces.